Yes. Hello. My name is Thomas Seifert. I'm Deputy Editor-in-Chief of Wiener Zeitung, and I'm honored to host this and moderate this next round. I hope you had a great coffee break. Our topic is Digital Europe. Is digitalization bringing more unity or disparity to the European Union? And I will ask my panelists to first of all introduce yourselves, because also we already are late in time, but we save some time. And actually you all have the names here in the programs that you found. So please check if you're interested in biographies. And also I want this round to be lively and interactive. So whenever something comes up, just raise your hand. We want you to engage with the panel. We were discussing before maybe also to make a more informal setting out of this, have more like a workshop, but we have a camera here, we're streaming, and so therefore we sit here. But this should not be like us versus you, but it should be something we're doing together. So please, I invite you at any point, just raise your hand for questions, for challenging us, or also for bringing up your own thoughts to this panel. It's something we do together. So without further ado, I just pass the microphone on and ask you, yeah, just...
So, it is microphone on?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Dear colleagues, first of all, I just introduce myself and being Octav then Paxino, State Secretary within the Ministry of European Funds. And I would like to thank Aspen Institute for organizing this event and for being such a great host. And it is important today to tackle relevant issues related to the way of improving regional cooperation through cohesion. So my subject to be put in debate today is cohesion policy for a union closer to its citizens. And in this respect, I want to attain some main characteristic, features of cohesion policy. So the cohesion policy is a form of solidarity with the least favored regions, and in order to be able to provide an effective answer to the economic and social matter of issues, the Union must streamline and coordinate its actions more effectively. The most important current challenges faced by the EU are, on one hand, the weakening economic competitiveness on the global scene, and on the other, deepening social stratification and disparities on economic development on internal dimension. Many regions are facing problems in adapting to current development trends related to globalization and demographic changes, leading to their progressive marginalization. Reducing disparities for an ever closer union. In order to achieve the objectives of the treaty and to respond to the new adaptation, cohesion policy must remain one of the key pillars of the post-2020 European budget and benefit from adequate budgeting for the challenges. The added value of European cohesion policies. The assessment of cohesion policies is undeniably positive. It is one of the most effective instruments contributing to European integration and real convergence process between all European regions. It is also the EU's main investment policy with significant long-term impact. We are facing the discussion on the future of the European Union in the context of global socio-economic challenges that are inherent also at the European level, together with a new legislative package that intends to promote a more modern, simpler and more flexible cohesion policy to achieve its objectives. Also, EU key contribution by core areas. Cohesion policy supports the EU 2020 strategy with its thematic objectives such as investment in research and the digital agenda to boost low-carbon energy and reduce social exclusion and poverty. For the post-2020 policy, we consider that one of the areas to be supported is the enabling of smart connectivity, including by new technologies and including in the wider development plans for smart cities. The objectives of the cohesion policy post-2020 and digitalization. Digitalization represents a key instrument for new opportunities for businesses, governments and citizens in a wide range of sectors, including industry, health, social media, e-services, big data, banking, etc. In this context, it is important for citizens to reflect on how the EU can take advantage of the digital revolution in order to remain competitive and create more jobs. In this respect, the digital revolution is bringing about changes in modes of production and patterns of consumption, in how we understand the world, in how we govern, and even in how we live together in society, and how we construct and build up our own life at the union standard. A strong digital economy is vital for growth and competitiveness in a globalized world. European citizens and member states should, its member states should step up their efforts to invest in digital products and services, including e-education, in order to boost productivity and create also new jobs. For the next period, the European Commission disclosed its budget proposal for the next financial period of 2021-2027. Compared to the present budget, innovation, research and digital sector get higher investment. The budget prioritizes the digital transformation of businesses, advanced digital skills, development of the digital infrastructure and high-capacity networks. The legislative package, as it is known, proposes 5 objectives for cohesion policy, respectively: a smarter, greener, more connected, more social, and closer to its citizens. One of the specific objectives is Smarter Europe by promoting innovative and smart economic transformation, consists in, along other measures, reaping the benefits of digitalization for citizens, companies, and governments. Also, the interventions will need to support further digitalization at the level of the private and public sector, but also at the services and infrastructure available for all citizens. At EU level, in the current programming period for digitalization, were allocated about 16 billion euros for the development of e-government, information and communication technology services, high-speed broadband, smart grids, and intelligent energy distribution systems. Research, development, and innovation and information and communication technology act as catalyzers for all other areas and economy and have the highest potential to generate sustainable growth and development. Additionally, research, development and innovation, as well as information and communication technology, directly contribute to the productivity of SME sector, thus creating added value for the economy and, of course, in order to create more jobs. In terms of fostering innovation in Romania, the cohesion policy constitutes one of the most important financing option for projects and the keystone for inclusive long-term growth. Investment in research, development and innovation and information and communication technology require the development of skills, thus indirectly contributing to the labor market development. Romanian, and now I just want to mention some words about the Romanian presidency of the EU Council, which is going to be taken over starting by January the 1st, 2019. Romanian presidency will be marked by the negotiation of Union strategic references, the reference dossiers, one of the most important being the multi-annual financial framework 2021-2027. In a time when there is need for rebuilding confidence in the benefits of the Europeans. The Romanian presidency of the EU Council aims to show vision and innovation while remaining within the tradition of exercising the rotating presidency of the EU Councils. In the context of the European level reflection process on the future of the European Union, the exercise of the Romanian presidency will be characterized by the joint efforts of the member states to identify responses to major challenges of the European project and defining its evolution over the next decade. As well, I would like to mention that prior to holding the EU Council presidency, the Romanian government will organize a high-level conference on inclusive cohesion policy for a union closer to its citizens, aiming to debate the future of the cohesion policy and the EU budget based on the legislative proposals. This conference is going to take place in Bucharest, in Palace of the Parliament, on October 30th. Thank you very much and wish you all the best.
Thank you, Octav. You mentioned the importance of hardware and infrastructure projects, but I want to bring up probably the more important thing of software, and that's human brains. And maybe I can ask Péter how you deal with this issue. I, by the way, use the software, and how easy or difficult it is in a time when we have a brain drain, even from places like Austria, Germany, to Silicon Valley, or London and other places, to get the talent that you need in Budapest and to get the talent that you need worldwide. For this, and for that is, I think, for quite a challenge for a lot of places in Europe, especially in Southeastern Europe, Eastern Europe, Central Europe. What to do about that? How can you get the talent? And how can you make sure that they don't run off to places on the west coast of the United States?
That's a tough question. You can't make sure, unfortunately. However, you can make it as appealing as possible to stay, in our case, in Hungary, in Budapest. And right now in Prezi offices, we have over 20 different nationalities actually who have come from all over the world. So it's not just European countries, but even from Asia, from North America, even from South America, we have people who are working in Prezi. And I think at the end of the day, what matters a lot for Prezi employees is that they get to work on something really exciting. And the exciting thing that they get to work on with Prezi is that our users have created the world's largest database of publicly available presentations. There are over 100 million people who have started to create these, but the presentations have been viewed by billions of people. And I think also for actually a lot of people, it is, interestingly enough, Budapest is a choice of quality of life as well. We have a big office in San Francisco, and I spend a lot of time there, and while there is a lot of exciting people and a lot of exciting ideas there, it's also a really stressful place to live. Living costs are very high, and also, I don't know if you knew this, but about half of San Francisco currently plans to leave it in 3 years because it's just not a very friendly environment. So Budapest has actually wonderful things to offer for people who want to focus on their work and have a big impact on the world. And the last thing I might say on that is there's a really interesting opportunity when you think about companies like Prezi and other startups who have made it globally to really contribute to a change in society. You know, in Hungary, a lot of companies would like to actually contribute to the same agenda as the government, which is how do you create good workplaces for people where they can earn money that gives them a good life. And IT companies are the ones who have made the jump. You know, this is, as far as I know, there are 4 globally successful companies that has come out of Hungary in the last 25 years. All of them are in IT, and they are providing jobs that are competitive on a global and European level. So I think that's an example of where if Central and Eastern Europe wants to take this step up and be more of a value-add economy, this industry is definitely a huge opportunity for these countries.
And could you imagine that, given that we have the infrastructure in place, that maybe a decision for programmers, for tech people, and maybe biotech people and other creative types is actually quality of life, as you said. So maybe that's an opportunity for places like Croatia, Romania, Bulgaria. I mean, you have wonderful coasts, great environments. And I just was in LA, and my neighbors there was a huge Google campus. And a lot of people actually want to move from San Francisco to this campus because you can go surfing. The weather is a bit better in LA. Living costs are LA is a little bit less stressful and has a different vibe, let's say, than San Francisco has. Do you think that is that crazy, or could that be a solution for, maybe Greek islands, Croatian coast, maybe Bulgaria, Romania, where you have wonderful places and also interesting cities, of course?
Yeah, I think quality of life is a really important point. I mean, what I see just from my own experience is, again, having exciting things to work on, not your standard outsourced company is a big pull. The other thing is actually, and this is one of our biggest challenges right now in Budapest, most of our employees are at a stage in their life where they're starting to have children. So we have a kindergarten in Prezi, but then of course the children needs to go to school, and a lot of times if it's not for a better job in West that people leave, they leave because of concern for education for their children. So they will leave because they just don't trust that their children will have the right opportunities.
I think an interesting point, maybe Diana, if I may bring you in on this, because one thing the region has going for it is education. As it's not by chance that a lot of programmers and coders come from places like Romania or Hungary, because in the the traditional education you had a strong points in natural science, mathematics, these kind of things, and that this tradition obviously is still there. And Péter just says, well, maybe that's one area of concern for young people today. What do you think? Is that still a strong point for places like Romania, Hungary, or would you say that what Péter just brought up, that education is one of the areas that we have to watch?
In Romania, I'm leading the Spherik Accelerator, which is like the top accelerator in Romania. So it was the first, and this allowed us to see what the ecosystem looked like in 2013 and where we are now. So your question is something that we usually encounter in different discussions, because usually when you look at these countries, you see just like the pool of engineers, of IT programmers, but for what you need in order to have a business, you need more than IT programmers. So you need a lot of know-how in different businesses, you need access to different verticals, you need marketing, you need communication, and you need a lot of business acumen, which is not really something that you find every step of the way in Romania or Central European countries, where, by the way, you have a very strong culture of engineering and mathematics. So I think what you can do is to try to work on your weaknesses and turn them into strengths. And I think this time is the perfect time to do this, because now we are moving from kind of internet apps. So the business models that are developed are no longer based on just connecting some consumers. You're moving towards deep tech, so you're talking about artificial intelligence, robotics, so you need a lot of hard knowledge on computing and in order to power new business models. but this can be an opportunity for all the CE countries, because this time you're not just lacking, like you cannot move beyond the initial state because you don't have the business knowledge. Now you have very strong engineers, and lately many corporates are entering the game, so they are like matching with startups and building new products, new ideas come to the market. Of course, there are challenges. Of course, when you're putting together startups and corporates, that's going to be a very interesting combination. But we started to do that in our program, and the results are quite encouraging. And we are currently learning how you can make this process work and to be a win-win situation for all the parties that are involved there. So the idea is to interconnect all the CE countries to bigger markets, entering specific verticals, working on what you have. You have like the human resources, but at the same time you have the European market, you have the European countries that maybe are more advanced than you in different topics, different areas, but at the same time you can bring some new added value. So it's not just outsourcing. It's not that you receive a brief or you receive some requirements and mechanically you just deliver what the client asks you. Even one of my colleagues is just developing right now a system that allows you to transform your notes in a notebook directly to code. So this is happening in Romania, and there are many other people that are doing and working in this kind of businesses. But they are very connected to US, UK, Germany, even Japan. So yeah.
Well, I think, Diana, you brought out something quite interesting and important, that we're talking about an ecosystem. It's not just that coders is the answer, or let's say the management skills are the answer. You need to have an ecosystem. So what can we do? I mean, if I think of the Austrian example, we have Ars Electronica bringing together artists with people from the electronics field, let's say from programmers, etc. You have the Pioneers Festival where the business community is brought in, angel investors, etc., etc. And I'm asking, maybe Pavel wanted to contribute on that. What are the moving parts that we need to take care of? Is it in money is the issue? Is the talent the issue? Or is it, as Diana said, how to build up an ecosystem that works where, the parts are not enough. It's the whole body that needs to function, not just the organs.
Mm-hmm. The Czech Republic belongs to the most industrialized countries in the world, with Slovakia as well. And what we watch is similar to what you mentioned. The ecosystem starts to grow from the historical, traditional, natural base of industry that is undergoing very profound digital transformation. And we keep in touch with hundreds of large or small or medium companies, helping them to transform themselves for the digital age. And the best ones who really succeed in the digital transformation are those ones who build on the traditional base, closely cooperate with the universities and help the universities to develop specific expertise, research, development, etc. Plus, they watch at least or involve in their ecosystem the startup scene. It's one of our role to interconnect the large companies with the startup scene. One example from my industry, from financial sector, JP Morgan, one of the most successful American bank, is watching 1,000 startups, and 200 already involved in their internal ecosystem for extremely sensitive areas like machine learning, in risk management, back offices, even front office roles, etc. It shows that it pays off. Plus, definitely, as Andreas in the morning mentioned, we need to build much further, the ecosystem, which will involve as the culture of startup nation. I mean now specifically venture capitalist, really extremely innovative economies. It's growing very slowly, I must say, after several very successful exits and etc. we see growing or looming up or emerging ecosystem, but still we are much behind the Silicon Valley in Israel, not to speak about Silicon Valley, but there are first signs. And what is very helping to have excellent cases like Prezi in Hungary, in my country it's Avast, in Estonia it could be Skype, showing that things can work. And recently I was extremely pleased by excellent startups coming even from Silicon to Prague, to the Czech Republic, and when I asked them, hey guys, why are you leaving the paradise for the startups, etc., they told me, because we see that in Central Europe and specifically in your countries, there are several stars that grew up in your country and became global. So that's my recipe, how to build the ecosystem.
And also, I think what you mentioned that, for instance, the Czech Republic is not like a one-trick pony. I mean, it's not, some nations are good at one thing, but like Austria, like Germany, there's a lot of know-how in many different industries. You brought out, automotive, etc., etc. How important do you think is that you have the diversity there, that you not just say, okay, I don't know, biotech is the thing, so let's put all the resources in biotech. What can governments do? You think that to find out what the strengths are? At the same time, we all know diversity is key, because maybe the key industries that we think of tomorrow, maybe they are not. Maybe something else is important.
I doubt that the governments can do something significant specifically, but they can create good conditions for the business and for the universities. And it's about education, infrastructure, technical, both in transportation, definitely favorable conditions regarding regulation, regulation that is enabler, not the stopper, showstopper of everything. So definitely it needs broad cooperation, but it's a role of business and universities, and the government should create help to create environment, or maybe to notch a little bit to start some initiatives, as like Israel did some decades ago, or the American government in Silicon Valley, when it started the whole process, but then the venture capitalists and the clever young people continued and built unbelievable paradise for innovations.
And Roland, what kind of a problem you think is let's say silos in the sphere, meaning that maybe the techies are here, finance is there, government is here. Is there enough interconnectedness between those silos? I mean, does everybody know what the other parties need? Does everybody know what we could do to make life for other parties easier? Do you think that's the case? And how can we improve this interconnectedness between these different spheres, between these different fields, and even maybe having the techies talk to, let's say, urban planners to at an early stage find out what all this, let's say, whatever Uberization of cities will look like, or bird, or whatever what you have, because that seems to me like a European strength, that we are able to see what technology means in daily life.
When talking about silos, I think we find silos everywhere. When I was working in the automotive industry, and they were not looking at, for instance, the pharmaceutical industry, etc. So there are silos there already. And I think with digitization, I'm not sure whether this.
Maybe take the other one if in doubt.
Now that's better, yeah. So within industry, there are already silos. Then, of course, between large corporates and small and medium enterprises and startups, there are silos. But also when you look at the policy area, let's say national policy makers, are they interlinked with their regional counterparts, for instance? So also there are silos. But of course, also at universities, applied universities, there are silos as well. So one of the big topics, and we're talking about that also on the OECD level, is what would be an adequate governance system, and how could you incentivize that all these people work together on various areas? And that is not just, and now we're talking about technicians or technology-oriented people in marketing, IT, etc. Now we see, and I think that's everywhere in companies, You have the IT departments and you have the operational technology, the guys that do all the production. There are big fights between these two because IT always says, I want the system be protected and as secure as possible, and the OT people say, I would like to produce. The rest, I don't care too much for that. I need the output. So also within institutions, there are big silos, and companies now think about how to overcome these barriers, for instance. And of course, in Europe, we have good opportunities. I think the strength of Europe is we have a very strong engineering also tradition. And if we combine that with data analytics, new business models, we would be very well off. The US Americans, they're very strong at analytics, new business models, but they are not strong at production technology, etc. So I would say, and that is particularly true for the B2B environment, that there's a good opportunity for whole of Europe in that respect.
Well, I want to stick with this issue of opportunities for Europe, but also what about the challenges? Because, and also let's keep in mind that we are here to discuss the challenges for Central Eastern Europe, but also let's keep in mind, for instance, when we talk about artificial intelligence, we're nowhere to be seen in Europe. I mean, there is the Chinese, there is the Americans, but where is Europe? And I have the impression that talk about the automotive industries, that, for instance, Merkel, when she comes up with this battery initiative, that they have the Airbus model in mind. I think politicians love Airbus because it works, right? I mean, they really, they showed Boeing that we can do that. But the question is that the way to go? Maybe for a huge project, I mean, building an airplane is a huge thing, right? Building a battery, not so much. I mean, you just have to get the know-how right. And building software, I mean, everybody knows I can do this on my iPad, right? I can build software. It's not rocket science in the same way that building an aircraft is. I have to be brilliant, but building an airplane, hundreds of people need to be brilliant. And that's, I think, what politicians look at. They see Airbus and they think, okay, that's the way to go. And I'm asking basically everyone here on my panel, whoever wants to chip in first, and even in, you guys in the audience, where you spoke about European strength, where is it? I mean, where is the sweet spot for us? What can we do that the Chinese cannot do, that the Americans cannot do? Where are we good at? Maybe Diana, you raised your hand.
Yeah, from my point of view, I think Europe has many dormant assets. And the only way to bring them to light is to develop this entire ecosystem. So, as you said, Europe, only by being united can place itself between US and China for the moment, but this is not for granted. So China is growing 3 times the rate of the EU. So it won't be long until we will just fall on the 3rd position in terms of AI. And I think if you're not investing in an ecosystem that builds on AI, you're like losing on every front, on every vertical. And I think it's very important to understand that not all countries will have like, they should not be in competition. So Romania should not be in competition with Slovenia. We have to understand the ecosystem as a whole in the EU. So we have strong research centers. We have other centers for production, let's say, software development. So you have to think as one and to understand that you have to move from competition to collaboration. It's tough because you're building on history and resentment and many other things, but I think this could be like a solution. And another point from the government point of view is to understand the difference in concepts. So now in Romania we are launching a new program for startups, especially deep tech startups, and we're giving them grants 40K, like what can you do in a deep tech industry with 40K? This is not a startup. These are money for small and medium companies. So you have to differentiate between what a startup does, which is innovation, and what a small and medium companies does, which is cashing in like in the next day and hiring people. So it's a very big difference when you design policies for this kind of entities. And of course, then is the discussion about how can you digitalize your economy. But of course, it's not digitization, so you just don't copy-paste the numbers from or translate some business models that are working now, as you mentioned, Airbus. into the digital world. You need to reinvent the business model. So I think this is really important when you're thinking about the structures you want to build upon, like businesses, opportunities, education, and everything else.
Also, what Roland said before, as a proud Viennese, I'm asking myself, is that what you said, that, we have these different sectors maybe communicating with each other more than in other places? I mean, that was Vienna was all about, in the 1900s, like 100 years ago, Egon Schiele died, and Klimt was actually painting from, stuff that he got from looking through a microscope in the medical faculty. So that was I think, that this beauty of Vienna was like, that people are looking into different sides, different sciences and arts, etc. And I'm wondering, maybe this is something that Europe still has in itself, that we still are able to look at different things and have this, let's say, philosophical mind of the polymath in a way. I mean, maybe we can cultivate that. Is that something that you can see? Roland, yeah.
I would like to draw to your first question concerning AI and where is Europe. Of course, we see that China and the US, they had a very strong AI strategy, and now the EU has one as well, like Germany, Austria is working on one, and several other countries as well. But if you look at, AI is of course also a hype topic. And for instance, one example in Austria, speech recognition as being part of AI, Austria is very strong. They have a very strong professor. So we have to look in more detail on what are the research topics. And of course it's good to have world-class research, and it's important to have that in Europe. But on the other hand, AI can never be a goal by itself. So it always needs the applications. And maybe you have a very good application, and then you commercialize also on AI, and maybe you would not need the best professor, but you need sort of a fairly solid AI application, because that would be the USB for your product. And that is, and I think that is true for a couple of other products. It's about combining the different technologies, be it AI, blockchain, IoT, 5G, etc., in a new product, in a new process, or in a new service. And I think that is the challenge. And I think we're very well positioned in Europe, although we are not as far in realizing a strategy compared to our Chinese or American friends. And one aspect, of course, it's good to cooperate, but I think it's, if there's some element of competition, this is also good for Europe. So it should be a combination of both.
And Péter, also what you said before, why did, for instance, I still love Spotify and don't use Apple Music that much, because it's just better, and the AI aspect is just better, because whatever I get as a recommendation is better than with Apple Music, which I also use. But comparing the two, so obviously something in the formula is right. Again, the West Coast, you have assets in San Francisco. Again, going back to this Europe-US debate, are we just seeing, the dust as the Americans, run away and are in front of each other, of us, or is there a catch-up possible?
I think there's a real risk. And I'm just curious in the audience here, like how many of you are more politically oriented while you're here? Can you just raise your hand? Policy versus entrepreneurship versus... Is it mostly policy people here? Policy and entrepreneurs? Is there any entrepreneurs here? Okay. Okay, and then I'm a startup, a deep startup. You wanted to say something.
No, I was just saying, as a NGO, I do think that I'm quite much
political entrepreneurs. Okay. Yes. But I mean, I think that in some ways this is so. First of all, thank you for putting digitalization on the agenda, and like if I may just broaden the picture and zoom out, though, because AI is a real challenge, I think, for Europe. We are losing our best people to the world's most successful companies who are paying $250,000 as a starting salary when you're graduating with an AI degree. So, like, I guess most of us in this room, just that blows our minds a little bit, right? But that's reality. And I think also it's important for us to then take the step up and look, okay, this AI, is this like a hype, or is it something that, I mean, why is it that China says that this is going to become a part of their national strategy? They don't say that about many other hyped things. So I think it's really important to consider the potential that AI might be one of the most powerful technologies we'll ever develop, and it will mean a lot of important things that has already started to happen. And we know automation, and people last year got all afraid, oh, our jobs are going to go, and I think it's true. They are going to go, and I think already now part of what used to be your job is going away a little bit. You're getting smart recommendations. You're not making all the choices on your own that you used to. And I think in the future we'll have more services like that. We'll have algorithms that tell us, like, should I go to this university or that university? Should I go to this employer or that employer? Should I develop this side of myself or not? And we will put our trust into these AIs, which will a lot of times be controlled by American companies. And to then come back to the original question of, like, so where is Europe's position in all of this? I think it's been a really interesting... Okay.
I was very much intrigued by... Yeah, no, but I remember Andreas Streichel basically simplifying the conversation. It's human talent and capital, okay? I'm trying to simplify. And then to the legatum thing, I think is very much into this. We are witnessing, at least in Romania, I don't think it's different in any other EU country, what I would call a stealth brain drain for engineering, mathematicians, software designers from the traditional industries where Europe is really competitive, telecoms, manufacturing of all sorts, towards the companies that are basically hiring them. So we see in Romania a sort of a hollowing out of the talent in the existing industries that have made, let's say, our country, our region, the #1 IT per capita thing. So the Oracles of the world, the Googles of the world, the Amazons of the world are basically hollowing out the talent within Europe. They're not leaving for Silicon Valley. They're staying in Romania but working for someone else. And the engines of growth and competitiveness that we have seen through the value chain of Europe, that also Romania and Slovakia and Czech Republic and everybody, Poland, all of us have moved up because of being part of the value chain. So my question is, probably Legatum can do something next year. We see a huge despair in terms of the human talent that is in the more traditional businesses, and when Roland was mentioning the ecosystem that you need to do, you'll find out that our smartest guys are not going to Silicon Valley because it's a limited physical space. They are working for American or tomorrow Chinese companies, and the traditional industries that would have had this competitive combined symbiosis, if you want, are basically hollowed out. And this is a cry of despair from most of the big European industries in my country. And I think Austria, I think, is no exception. I think even Germany probably is no exception. So that was my question.
I'll try to attempt to just go back a little bit, and answer your question. Yeah, so like, I mean, and it's related to your question. So we accept that AI is coming and it'll automate away not just a lot of our jobs, but also our decisions. And you know what? I think I'll make a bold statement. I think it might be actually good. If you survey people around the world, about 80% of them hate their jobs. And I think actually a lot of people will not miss taking out the garbage or driving their car, or like there's a lot of jobs actually that very few of us find purpose in. And this is something actually where, connecting back to your thoughts on Europe's artistic roots, and also something where we have a unique position. I thought it was very interesting that Europe took the first step on GDPR, for example, a first step to start protecting people and their data. Because the reality is that data will be a decisive factor in how this new economy is going to be built. And Europe has actually an opportunity to redefine what this new economy should look like. So if we get rid of all of these jobs that are, and by the way, Central and Eastern European countries, they will lose the jobs first, because guess what? These are the jobs that are easiest to automate away. So we could be the leaders in the world of redefining what this new future would look like, a future that I imagine should be based on creativity and personal development. And by the way, I think that economy will adjust even to doing things like that. And I think GDPR could be potentially, if we wanted to pull the thread on, actually a first step in that very long road to take. But it would require also our leaders, political, policymakers, and entrepreneurs to be willing to challenge the most basic principles of the industrial age of like, what is value actually, and how should I spend my time? Is it meaningful that I spend my time on these specific activities, or can I bring values to people by beauty, by joy, by a sense of purpose? If we're willing to ask these really big questions, I think that Europe is in a unique position to be able to answer them. This is not going to happen in China. and maybe it won't even happen in the US, who knows? But my biggest concern for Europe is that, and particularly for our region, is that we have a very long history of being followers instead of leaders. And so if we're wanting to actually have a stab at this opportunity, it would require a fundamental shift in our mindset, where we don't try to follow either it's to the east or to the west, but we try to actually invent new ways of being and activating ourselves. And that, I think, is a really important conversation that needs to get so much higher on the political and the policy agenda. If we don't do it, we will be followers, and we will lose out on our competitiveness. That's just a warning from Péter.
Thank you. Robin Gosian, Erste Foundation. A comment and two questions, both of which will go to Péter. First, a comment. Thomas, I think I would challenge you on Airbus being portrayed as a successful European business model for miscellaneous reasons, but that's more like anecdotal in a way. And the two questions. Péter, smaller one. You portrayed or you described Budapest as a place with high quality of life, as a good city to work in. What would you want to have in addition to what you already have from Hungarian authorities, municipalities, state level? What is it you don't have? What is it they probably don't want to give? Question one. Question two, and I'm sort of like cashing in on what we talked yesterday evening already. Help me to understand. I know Prezi for, say, one product, but your plans are much bigger. A little bit of airtime for you, as in what you want to achieve with Prezi, despite already sort of like being the one presentation software we should all learn to use. Thank you.
Jan Chromitz from Warsaw, from the Battery Foundation. Since the banner behind you reads "Ideas Impacting Society," I would like to challenge you on 2 points. The first is a reaction to what you just said about automating jobs away and how that will be great for the people. Perhaps you didn't talk about the social consequences. Perhaps you think about them, but you haven't articulated it. For the majority of the population which doesn't have your skills, this is a terrible perspective. This is not joy. If you don't have stability, fundamental economic stability in your life, then you will go to the populace, which says that we should get rid of you. So I think one idea impacting society is how to prepare the majority of the population for the fact that their jobs will be automated away. And my second point is this. Imagine, each of you, that you are in an elevator with Donald Tusk, Jean-Claude Juncker, and Antonio Tajani, and you have time to pitch just one idea on what the European Union should do to support digital transformation. What would it be?
Thank you. So since we're talking about Generation Next and you talked about the generation of entrepreneurs in the region, I wonder how political they actually are. Because an observation that I have from where I come from is that there is a generation that is very much engaged in, they're all entrepreneurs, or they work for the so-called outsourced economies like the Vibers and the Skypes and Sophia. And they earn probably 7 times more than I earn, but they're completely disengaged from political life. Moreover, they basically rely entirely on private services. So they send their kids to private kindergartens, they go to the private doctor. So there is very little interaction that they have with the state, hence they don't really care that much about it. So if you could talk a little bit about that.
I think we go back to the panel. I think, Péter, you were directly addressed, so let's do that first.
So many questions. Well, the thing that would help Prezi to recruit more talented people in Budapest, it would be to be more welcoming of diversity, clearly, and then the less corruption. So those are the two things that would greatly benefit us. Let's see, the second question was, I forgot already. Oh, yes. Yes. How could I squeeze this in a short amount of time? We got started with Prezi because we'd like to help people make better decisions. And one of the reasons why we think people aren't making very good decisions is that we lack engaging experience of absorbing information. And we saw, and we have seen this now thanks to some Harvard research, that Prezi actually helps you both as a presenter and as an audience to become more effective communicators. So that's what excites us, and we believe that's because Prezi is a more spatial format than a paginated format. So space is like this room and paginated like this paper. And when you're in a more spatial environment, you get more engaged. And, when you talk about things like VR and AR, from our point of view, they're just a natural evolution towards increasingly more immersive experiences that will help people to obtain information in better ways. And this alone is, of course, not sufficient because we know that information can be distracting instead of helping you to expand your mind. So our mission is to use storytelling as a way to help people to understand information and by that making better decision.
I would love to address the issue of the social consequences. We studied dozens of cases in companies while the management replaced many routine roles and operations by people, by artificial intelligence, robotics, etc., etc. And the most successful companies did it unbelievably well because they replaced some roles of certain people, but kept the people, retrained them in their area to higher roles, from routine operations to advisory, for instance. Which means we can manage, and I tell you that I share the view that during now the digital transformation, maybe millions of jobs will disappear or roles will disappear, but dozens of millions will emerge, and we must manage the big maneuver. And all the cases we studied all the positive were based on education and training. And we must change our mindset. If we are able to change at all levels, starting from government to companies or individuals, our mindset, and to understand education as the whole life cycle, really something that you can't interrupt. So we can improve well-being of people, humanize work, not dehumanize, but humanize. Instead of routine, I will do something that is based on social skills, etc. And what I'm talking about, it's not about technological skills. It's about people role. Advisory, it's not technological. Advisory is social skill, etc., etc. So my last sentence is that the new modern education must combine technological skills with social skills. Then we can be a very successful society.
Yeah, I will go back to the interesting question about the elevator meeting. I think I would have a question for them. Do you want the EU to be just our survival kit, or you want to thrive in this world? So it's just changing the mindset, and it puts you in a different perspective, because it's not just catching up or trying to work only with what you have, but only following old recipes. It's just like inventing something, like trying to understand how you can use what you have, but generating more value in terms of meaningful work, more value in terms of integrating with the global supply chain, more value in productivity, and also like it's a totally changing your mindset in approaching all the technology. And one sentence I will close my intervention is that I don't have a tech background, so the idea that you need to have like very strong tech skills, it's not anymore, because technology is becoming horizontal, so you can build on different verticals. And yeah, I think for all my colleagues in the Accelerator, but also in the ecosystem, I can say that they are very much involved in their community life. They are becoming very active citizens. They are thinking about taking up political position at a certain point in their lifetime. So I think that's, for me, it makes sense to be in this environment because it's really creative, and I think it can really shape the next kind of economy and society.
I want to announce that Péter had to leave us. It's actually my fault, because I promised him we're going to stop at 1 o'clock sharp. We are obviously continuing a little bit more, but he has to do it. There was the question what his next steps are. I think he has to work on them and heading back to head office. So that's the answer. But Octav, sorry.
So I will try to be very short. As a conclusion, probably. In order to have a better generation, generation next, I would like to be an educated generation next. First of all, to be also preoccupied, each government from all member states to concentrate their efforts in order to allocate, as for NATO, for example, 2%, they are more or less obliged, agreed to allocate 2% for endowment for army and for military scope. The same to be done, at least minimum 1% annually for research, development, digitalization, and education in the field. And another aspect I want to raise up is that every citizen in European Union should be conscious about his or her importance as a member of European Union in order to find the way to respect what is value in society. Every human talent, should be kept up here in European Union territory. We have this capability and ability to do like this. At the political level, I think it's a very important thing to jointly think about, instead to promote, the competitiveness is good for the business environment. But also in this field, I think that the best thing is to harmonize the efforts and to find the best solution, even regulations, to keep these talents in European Union. Also, I know that it's probably rather difficult, but as long as we are not concentrated to set up, to create some research center on a few countries which are more suitable for hosting these centers, and to get together all the specialists, all the talents of European Union together by stimulating them, incentivizing them. This is the key to keep them here. Otherwise, of course, everybody who has this ability to become a very important person in the field, in IT and in the domain we are talking about, is to have a better life standard. And as long as he is not achieving it here, he's looking to cross the ocean. Thank you.
I would like to give remarks on two aspects. The first one was, the guy is not here anymore, on the spillover effect, hollowing out companies. And I always tend to say, well, there are these spillover effects. And there is an example of the 1970s from the US, because from one day to the other, a big laser technology research center was closed. And that was the beginning of the leadership in laser technology in the US, because of this spillover effects. And many of these people that work in these, let's say, big American companies, they might change their job and could enrich the local environment. And I think what is key for us in Europe is to focus more on I would call it the human factor. I was last year in China looking at this China 2025 initiative, and the Chinese government says, I would like to destroy 50% of the production workers' jobs in a period until 2025, 2030. And when we think of, let's say everybody uses SAP in a company or any other given software tool, what would be the competitive factor towards all the competitors on the world market? At the end of the day, it's a human being. And if we create an environment where, let's say, somebody in a company has a good idea and he will not come up with this good idea because he's afraid that he will lose his job, this would be detrimental. So to sort of try to invigorate this innovative thinking is key to my mind. And we have an example of a company that by a simple management tool, they improved efficiency within 4 months of 40%. So there's a huge potential on the sort of the human factor. And concerning jobs, I think last week it was, I've seen a presentation, 2 pictures of New York, one in 1903 and one in 1913. In 1903, there was 1 car, and the rest was a full road with horse carriages. 10 years later, there was 1 horse carriage and just cars. So there has always been a change in jobs, and we have to adapt to that. I think, and that is what you have said, Pavel, we have to, so learning is key everywhere. And for instance, we got feedback from companies on the shop floor that somebody was talking to a worker and say, you should do some education, some training, and he thought it was a punishment because his job quality was not good enough. And that means we have also to change the organizational culture so that it's an organizational culture of learning. And that is a mutual necessity for all of us, but we have to create these environments where this is possible. And concerning jobs, there was a study, and it's for Central Europe basically, that 9 to 12% of the existing jobs will get away through digitization, but in a sum, in Europe, we'll produce more new jobs. But many of these jobs are in areas we couldn't imagine yet. So trying to look at this glass bowl, what would be the new jobs, is not possible, but we see also in companies that within 3, 4, 5 years' time, new jobs are constantly, and new job profiles are constantly generated.
Yes, we're already 10 minutes over time. So I want to apologize to you in the audience who did not have a chance to ask questions, or I hope you can do that at lunch and interact with each other and with my wonderful panelists. So thanks to my wonderful panelists. Thank you for the lively debate. Thank you to a wonderful audience. Again, I deeply apologize. I'm really unhappy with myself because that's what I don't want, that people still, had questions and I couldn't make sure that you can answer them. So I really strongly encourage you. Lunch is waiting, so that is another motivation, I think, for you guys maybe to leave this room and get some and grab something to eat. But I strongly encourage you. I think you all be here. I think it's a good opportunity to discuss in, let's say, in a more bilateral or trilateral way as we're having lunch. Thanks a lot, and also I was really honored to, be the moderator of this wonderful panel. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Enjoy your lunch.